All right, welcome back. And today I want to continue on. We're going to have a look at using those databases again. This time, kind of more in a how do we integrate that information from our database into our app here. So in the previous class, we looked at a random chooser, a random picker. I did a dog one. There's a video about showing me a random cat. So I'm gonna use the same dog data but in a slightly different way. So I'm going to bring in this dogs here, and I'm going to import that into my app. So now I have the dogs database table all set. And just as a reminder, that's got a whole bunch of dogs, names, their type, their different sizes, and even a picture of each one. And in this case, I want to just have kind of a database, a list of all the possible dogs and see what they look like so that I can know what each dog looks like. So rather than randomly picking, maybe I'm at a dog show or at the dog park and I'm like, hey, what is that? What's that dog? So I'm going to, let's just call this a home screen here. I'm going to, instead of randomly picking, I'm going to use a little option drop down here. And drop down menus are great. They're often used in any kind of time you want to make a selection or pick or choose parts, any kind of online shopping cart and things like that. We're often going to get some drop down menus. And you can punch in as many options as you want here if you had a preset one, but in this case, I want to use the database information for that so that that can be updated and changed and my menu can be dynamic. And in this case, I'm going to throw a picture here. Oh, let's name that. Don't get sloppy. Make sure you name it. I'm going to call this the dog picker. And the picture of the dog I want to have so I can see it. And in this case, I will call this the dog image. And, as far as some kind of app, maybe a label here, um, like the find the dog. And probably not handy to know the name, honestly, when I think about the application of this, but you can spin it however you like. We could even have a menu of pictures, I guess, if we wanted to. Maybe that's your next challenge. But here we're going to find the dog. I'm going to have a list of all the dogs in the database, and I can pick one and be like, hey, what's a Weimaraner look like? And it will pop up there. So let's get into our code. And here, the first thing I want to do is grab all that information from the database and update my list. I don't want option one, option two. I want to have all of the names here. So luckily, I don't have to do a click or anything. I can just do that right at the beginning. I'm going to set the properties of this drop-down menu, which I call dog picker. Let's switch to the blocks here so you can see, and I'm going to do dog picker. I'm going to set and you'll notice one of the options is options. So you can choose all sorts of different stuff about this, but I can pick all of the options. And then I would normally put in those options there. But in this case, I need to be able to read the database, get that information, and put it in here. So I'm actually going to get the column. Because I want all of the names here. So it's going to be a pretty easy way using this get column. I don't have to do the read records because I don't need anything else other than one column's worth of data, which is kind of handy. In this case, the column is called dogs. And the table is called dogs, and the column, I believe, is called name. Let's go quick double check that. Name, capital N, yes. All right, and let's give that a go to see if that first part works here. So I'm going to run that, and you can see, first of all, the name is there, and yes, all of those names of those dogs have popped up there, which is really, really handy. And I could click on American Foxhound or something like that, which would be fabulous. Now, when I choose that, I've got to think, how do I want to do this? Do I want to have a button or just automatically do it? think it would make most sense from a user interface. I would expect when I pick this that immediately the picture would update. So I'm gonna look at doing it that way rather than having another button, because that button could be confusing. I could choose that. It could have the previous dog here, and then we would be confused looking at that name and seeing a old dog um, on the list. So something to think about as you're doing some designing, get some feedback. This is just me thinking off the top of my head, which way makes more sense. Not necessarily from a programming perspective. From a programming perspective, it'd probably be easier to have a button here that I would click. But I want to think about how my user is going to interact with this app and what they are going to think about. So let's update that so that when we let go or we make a change or something like that, then we are going to change the property of that picture. Actually, under the UI controls, we have a way of doing that. It doesn't have to necessarily just be a click. There's actually a lot of things on events here that we have to choose from. And in this case, on event ID, I'm going to still do the dog picker. Something's been done with the dog picker. I'm not going to click on that, but if you look here, we get a whole bunch of options. There's input, mouse over, mouse move, key press, or there is a change, and that's kind of handy. When there's a change to this dog picker, that's going to trigger this event rather than clicking on it or doing something like that. So that's really, really handy. Now, it gets a little trickier here because while we have set this dog picker, now I have to go and find the image from the database of the dog that was chosen. So the first thing I want to do is to grab that information to be able to go look it up in the database. And for that, I'm going to go and have a look at the new thing we've done here, which is called a JavaScript object. Because the idea is I will have the dog's name, but I don't know anything else about that dog. And then I need to go into the database. I need to go find the dog that was chosen here. And then I need to go look across and pick up what its picture is. So this involves retrieving a specific piece of information from the database, not all of the information. This is a really powerful, powerful feature of databases here. But for this, I need to be able to say what I'm looking for. So I'm going to create a new object. And this is a lot like creating a variable. But remember, we talked about JavaScript objects having two parts. They have the thing we're looking for and then period value. We did this when we picked names and when we picked the picture and things like that. So I'm going to write that. So the object I'm going to get, and I'm going to call this the chosen dog. The thing that I have selected here is the name, and that's the key. The key is something we are going to look up. It's one of those columns in the database. These are all what we call keys here. Bred for, maximum Spain. And you may remember from the name we used the word primary key, which is the unique one. In this case, it's the ID. But all of these are keys or things we search for or how the information is organized in the database. So I've picked a chosen dog. It's grabbed up here. I'm going to set a JavaScript object. The name of it is, and then I'm going to go grab whatever I got here. So I'm going to get text or get property. Where are we here? Get property. I'm going to get whatever dog picker has chosen. I'm going to get the text here. You might want to think get options, but that'll get all of the options here. I want to get whatever it has been set to. And I'm going to write that into this JavaScript object. Next, I can now go and grab that piece of information from the database using something we've done already, but in a slightly different way. We have that read records that we did. So I'm going to grab that. This allows me to read all of the data from the database. In this case, the default here is a little loop. We read it into something called records, And then we have a little for loop here that prints out everything. This is really just for teaching purposes here, so you don't always have to do all of these things. The read record is the really important one. In this case, I don't want to display any of it. I want to go and find the one that I'm doing here. So I don't want to print that out. So I'm going to get rid of that console.log. But this loop is actually kind of handy because in this case, we should only have one of them, but I can't guarantee that. There may be duplicate entries for that dog in the database. So I do want to loop through all of the entries looking for a particular one. And that's where this little feature comes in. It's blank right now, which means it'll go through absolutely everything, not looking for anything. But it's got these little curly brackets here, which you can see. And then up here, you can see when we made the JavaScript object, that two-part thing, it's got little curly brackets here too. So this is how we define a JavaScript object. So what this is doing is looking for the JavaScript, is going to be a search term as a JavaScript object. You'll be able to find a particular thing if you want. So in this case, I want to find the chosen dog, and only the chosen dog is going to be looked for. And so I'm going to go under the name, and I'm going to try and find whatever I picked. So I'm going to drag that out of here. You can just type it in if you're using the text, but in this case, I am going to say, I'm just going to type it in here, chosen dog, because that's a variable that we've picked. Oh, and I think it's, let's go backwards there. No, that should be just chosen dog. All right, now let's just, let's actually bring that console, console in here just to see if that works. So I am going to bring that console.log back in here. In this case, what I want to do is I just want to see, is the name that I picked found in the database? So I am going to console.log records, because remember that's all of them, at I, and it's going to loop through every one of the records. This is a good thing to do, and it's only, however, going to return or send back the information that matches that chosen dog we've done here. And I can do the, well, let's just, we can do the image. We can see if the image URL comes up here. So I'm going to do, I think it's a capital I image without an asterisk there. Oops. Sorry about that. There we go. Let's go records at I periods and image. All right, let's give that a run, see if we get any errors here. And I make a change to the Australian Kelpie, and we get nothing here. I get a little error. Make sure you pay attention to these errors because we all make mistakes. And I look back here, I think I undid it too many times. You tried to read the records from a table called My Table. I don't have a My Table. I have a table called Dogs. There we go. Let's reset that and run. Let's go for the Australian Shepherd here. Oops, we can't find out what record is. Oh, because notice another mistake here. Records rather than record. So don't ignore these debugs. Give them a little read, and it will often give you a hint as to what mistake you made. It does a really good job. Even gives you some suggestions, or maybe here's possibly the mistake. In this case, it wasn't. I had just forgot the S. Let's try that one more time. There we go, Australian Shepherd, and up comes a picture. I'm assuming that's the Australian Shepherd. If I really wanted to check it, I could make a new tab here, and I could paste, and I bet you, there we go, perfect. So now that I've done that console.log, I know it works, so I can just use it to, I'm going to keep that here for a second, and I'm going to go set property just so I don't forget. I'm going to go change the picture. the set property, the dog image. I want the image to be, and in this case, we are going to say, just like I did before, records at I, period, image. And now I don't need that anymore. It can still be there, but it's really just a debugging purpose. And let's see what happens with my database. Nope, mistake, mistake, mistake. All right, let's bring that back there and figure out why we're not getting a picture here. Very strange. All right, let's have a little look here, another debug. So I see that is proper. I set the property of dog image. I'm setting the image to be this text. Now, what happens if we just grab that line there? Here's one of the pictures that was returned. And instead of using the variable, let's paste it in there and see if it works. So I make some kind of change. I should see the dog there. That worked up just fine. So what mistake did we make? Oh, I put it in quotation marks. That's why. The variable is already in quotation marks. So we want our records at I, period, image. That is a variable that has a string in it. I don't need to put quotation marks. Otherwise, it was trying to put the picture records I.image as the name of the picture. Let's give that a go. And there we go. There's our fix. So now you have an amazing database. You can pick pieces of information from it and then show another piece of information using all of that data for you. So a couple things on that one, just as a reminder. We've grabbed a piece of information. This could be something that you type in, but in this case, we've used a drop-down menu. We have used a change function so that you can not necessarily just have to click on a button to make that user interface a little better. I've grabbed a Java or created a JavaScript object, my own here. That's done under variables, and you can see where you can make a new object. Super handy for being able to grab data from a database. I then used the read records feature, and I passed that JavaScript object, the thing that I'm looking for. And keep in mind in the future, this could be something like a username or a password that you're grabbing that somebody's typed in. You're going to the database to have a look and see if that matches. And then I use that for loop to go through all of them, but only trying to find this one, and then grabbing another piece of information from that line. So really handy, and I hope you can start to see the implications of this for shopping lists, for username passwords, for all sorts of stuff whenever you want to be able to access and compare different pieces of information from the database.